and I'm here with Dr. Bergeron and Dr. Palmer, and we're going to tell you a little bit about our program, our major, our minors, our certificates, and we're particularly going to talk about some of our hands-on opportunities and experiential learning that we have in store for you for next year. So to begin, we have a major in Anthropology and Geography, and this major allows you to concentrate in either anthropology or geography, but it integrates both fields around a theme of human and environment interactions, looking at those interactions in the past, in the present, and the way in which we represent those interactions. So we study everything from physical geography to cultural anthropology, to human geography, to archaeology, to human evolution. We study geospatial technologies. We use GI science quite a bit in all of our fields. And the classes that we offer to you allow you to explore an introductory level in each of these aspects of our fields, and then also to concentrate a little bit, to decide what exactly is the focus that you want for your undergraduate program. We also have a couple of minors that can be combined with our major or combined with other majors. For example, we have a new minor in Human Environment Geography that focuses very closely on the intersections between human culture and the natural world. We have a minor in Geographic Information Systems that Dr. Bergeron will tell you a little bit about, and then we have a minor in Anthropology. And we also have several certificates that allow you to get specialized skills in some fields. So for example, we have a certificate in Geospatial Technologies, and we have a certificate in Applied Archaeology that gives you very specific hands-on training in archaeological field and laboratory methods. If you want to see all of the requirements for our major and for our minors and our certificates, you should go to Coastal's catalog website, which is just catalog.coastal.edu, and you can search for each of these programs and see the specific requirements. One of the points of excellence for our program, however, is our hands-on experiential learning and our methods opportunities for you within the major. So our major actually requires that you take some methods courses, although you have a chance to choose what kind of methods courses you want. For example, you could choose methods courses in digital mapping, virtual heritage. You can choose methods courses in GIS. You could choose methods courses in archaeological lab methods or archaeological field methods, or you can choose methods courses, for example, in forensic anthropology, if that's something that you're interested in. But we do require students to get some kind of methods training, but it's one of our areas of expertise. And that's what we want to tell you a little bit more about today. So I'm going to talk with Dr. Palmer and Dr. Bergeron here, and they're going to give you a little bit of an introduction to some of their programs. But we'd like to first start by showing you a short video about the Archaeological Field School that is going to be offered in fall semester. And this is the first time we're going to be offering it during a regular semester. And you will have the opportunity, if you take this class, to do archaeological excavations at Brook Green Plantation on Brook Green Gardens on Saturdays. Transportation will be provided to the site, so you don't necessarily need to have a car. And once you get to the site, you will actually be doing these archaeological excavations. So Dr. Bergeron, if you're able to pull up that video for us, we'd like to watch and learn a little bit more about it.
All right. So can you see my screen with the video?
Yes.
It looks like it's coming up. Yep.
Okay. Can you hear it okay?
Looks
It's
great.
not just like pretty items that are from the past, but we can start to make sense of human behaviors.
This is a field school, and we're located on Brook Green Gardens Plantation.
It's Anthropology 396Q. It's an experiential learning class. We have gridded off an area where we are following up on work from 2016.
What we're trying to do is find potential remnants of the slave village that potentially was in this area. There was a map drawn up by one of the previous owners that shows generally where one might have been.
There were 4 rice plantations here. There were more than 1,100, enslaved Africans that were listed, for those plantations.
We're finding a lot of brick and a lot of household objects and nails that point to maybe there was a structure.
So these are some of the things that we have actually found today. Ceramic, cut nail, glass, tobacco pipe stem.
The artifacts we've been finding are of the right time period. They're first half of the 19th century. That was when the rice plantation, the Brookgreen rice plantation, was at its largest in terms of size.
You never know what you're going to find, and it's really cool.
It's kind of satisfying for the students and satisfying for me as well, you know, that we're able to find some things in the short period of time that we have out here. The things that we're finding, even just the isolated potsherds and bits of glass and tobacco pipes, can be easy to lose sight of the fact that you're the first person to see that in probably more than 150 years.
In the classroom, you may learn about all this, but you're not actually getting to do it. So when you walk out here and you actually get to pick up the trowel and like scrape up the dirt yourself and find the objects, it's almost more rewarding in a way because you're getting to do it yourself. Once you come across something that's more unusual, it's really easy to think about who might have used it before and like the importance of it.
Out here, they're learning how to do things while they're participants in, you know, primary research.
We're digging through like a bunch of roots and bugs, and it's all in the hot sun. It's a lot harder than I thought it'd be, but it's very rewarding.
If your heart isn't in it, you probably won't stay within the field because it is strenuous work.
One of the things that we have to balance in doing a field school is training students in field methods with accomplishing our research goals. Not all of them are going to go on to become professional archaeologists, but even if they don't, they gain an understanding of the field and what we're trying to accomplish with it.
The reason why I'm personally out here is to gain experience just as a field tech in general.
For me, instead of this being a possible like field, it's more knowledge and learning of the process. This work we're doing now, it looks very nice on resumes. Obviously, like in my case, it's good just to show that I have a variety of background of work I've done.
We started working in this area in 2016 based on our prior archaeological surveys as well as some historical map information. We're absolutely building on prior work.
If I can like find something that helps future people find even more and maybe just like open the door for them to find new things, I think that's great. We're just really trying to uncover a little bit more of that puzzle.
We want to leave the records of what we're doing such that 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now, some other archaeologists could sit down and look through our records and make sense of it and use it for planning where they're going to take their research.
It'll continue for years. You know, they'll be able to dig out here for a much longer time than we are.
One of my ideal goals for this is to be able to find something that has some meaning for, you know, present day Gullah, you know, many of whom are descended from people who were enslaved, you know, right out here at Brookgreen.
Okay.
Thank you for showing that, Dr. Bergeron.
Thank you.
So we have Dr. Palmer here today, and he's available to answer questions. If you have any questions about the field school or any of our programs, feel free to type them into Facebook Live, and those are going to be fed to us so we can answer your questions. But I want to emphasize that we have a lot of hands-on opportunities, and this field school is just one of them. So I want to turn it over to Dr. Palmer because he can tell you a little bit more about the field school and what they have planned for this fall. And then maybe he will tell us a little bit about the laboratory class that's going to go along with it, where you have the opportunity to not only do some projects and do some hands-on projects in the lab, but work directly with the artifacts that are coming out of these excavations.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dillian. Is my mic level good? Or at least those of you, all right, I see some nods, cool. So yeah, as Dr. Dillian mentioned, the field school, it's going to be in the fall this year. Typically we run it in May. Obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic, it wasn't happening for this May. It's actually going to work out pretty well though, I think. We're going to run it this fall as a course on Saturdays. So we'll actually extend into some cooler months of the year. So some of the minor complaints you heard in the video there will not be maybe quite as pressing. We're going to be continuing the work in that same area that you saw in the video, where we found what are called post molds. Those are basically traces of structures. So we are finding evidence of the houses where the captive Africans there lived. And we're trying to find more of those. The other aspect of the project for this fall is we're going to do some work in the area of the overseer's house that is indicated with signage right now as part of the Low Country Trail at Brookgreen Gardens, but we want to get a better handle on its exact location and any traces of activities that are associated with it. And this is all part of our larger goal with the project, working with Brookgreen Gardens to give them information they can use to better interpret that period of history and the cultural events and things going on there from the early and mid 19th century. So when the property was for active rice plantations worked by captive Africans instead of a nonprofit sculpture garden as it is today. So the property has had quite a bit of transformation. However, it is very well preserved because of its current use as kind of an outdoor park type of setting. And so it's really good for archaeology. As was mentioned in the video, this is a really unique class because you will not only be learning more about archaeology, doing it in the field, but you'll be part of the research team. One of the other things that is a project that's in the early stages is working with the descendant community from Brookgreen to assist them with maintaining cemeteries on the property. And we also have public visitors, from the general public, some of whom are descendants, some of whom are from all over the world. So we have visitors from all over the place come and check out what we're doing. So part of the class will also teach you a bit of public interpretation, being able to concisely explain what you're doing, why it's important. We're helping to recover information about people whose past was not documented much in written records, despite the contributions they made to the culture and economy and history of the region and our country and the world. The companion class that Dr. Dillian mentioned, it's Anthropology 411, Archaeological Records. And that class, we do a lot of the methods for historical archaeology, particularly artifact analysis, and we'll actually be working with materials from this field school and prior field schools. Matter of fact, some of the students who are signed up right now, I won't name their names because of FERPA, but they are enrolled in both courses. So if you're really interested in archaeology, and if it's possible for you to do so, sign up for both classes. It'll be much more rewarding for you. Students in Anthropology 411, they carry out projects working with the artifacts and other information from the Brookgreen excavations, and they produce a poster. Some of the posters have been of such quality that students have gone on and presented them at local, regional, and national conferences. And we had the students from the last time I taught the course present at Brookgreen Gardens, and some of them also went on to professional conferences. So it's a really good opportunity to get very involved in the hands-on parts of archaeology. You're not just reading about it in a book, you're actually dealing with literally the raw data, the actual things. We'll work with some documents as well. So that you'll be learning all about that. There are field trips. We'll go to Brookgreen Gardens. You'll visit the archives there. We're going to have some specialist, expert guest speakers, including Dr. Dillian, perhaps Dr. Bergeron, if I can convince her, and some others. So speaking about some different things like technologies you can use in archaeology and public interpretation and other things. So maybe, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Let's see if I can share screen and show a poster. I think maybe not, but that's okay. My email, it's dpalmer1, D for David. So it's basically my first initial, Palmer 1, the numeral 1, at coastal.edu. Okay, I should be able to share screen now. Excellent. Okay. So here you should be able to see, can you all see a couple of flyers there? Okay, well this has my contact information. It also has the dates for the field school and also for archaeological records, as well as the meeting times for archaeological records. An exciting thing for archaeological records and also for our department is we'll actually be meeting in Prince 112, which is our Anthropology and Geography lab, which is has just been made available to us for this fall. So it's very exciting. It's a really great space, has natural light, has enough space where we'll be able to still do the things that we need to do safely and with the health concerns and so forth. So it's gonna work out really well. I'm gonna stop sharing this. So I don't see any questions. Do we want to move on to Dr. Bergeron maybe, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
Dr. Bergeron, do you want to tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing and that students have been working with you on? And then if there are any questions, feel free to type them into the Facebook Live page and we can answer those at the end.
All right, absolutely. So I'm Dr. Sue Bergeron, as Dr. Dillian mentioned at the beginning, and my area of expertise a little bit varied. So I have a background in history, historical archaeology, and geography and GI science. So that's my educational background, and I have evolved that into a growing interest and focus on what they call virtual heritage. So using advanced 3D computer technology to recreate historical places, and not just recreate what they might have looked like, but also embed information about them so people can experience perhaps a little bit about what those places were like and also learn about them at the same time. So when I first came to Coastal, I had a project ongoing and started working with another colleague to do a similar 3D project for ancient Delphi, Greece. So we worked on that for a couple of years. And right after that, I started a project called Virtual Hampton, which is in the stages of getting ready to be finished. So it's in its last stages. And that's a project that involves a recreation of a plantation in Georgia, well, just south of Georgetown in the edges of Charleston County on the South Santee River. And I wanted to show a little bit. This is a slightly older demo, but we'll give you an idea of some of the technology that I've been working with. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a prototype from last summer, because we have to, you can probably hear it a little bit early there. Let me share it. All right. So can you see that? Can you see the Coastal Carolina logo? All right. So this is Virtual Hampton's opening screen. So students worked on this in a number of fields. So one of the things that we can offer you with our programs is also the chance to participate in interdisciplinary work. That means classes that are housed in other programs, but also cross over with what we do to give you a wider range of skill sets and concepts in the 21st century and how we work with technology. So I work also with the Digital Culture and Design program, so that my geography and GIS that I work with in our department can also bring in knowledge from there and help students. So students from geography, from DCD and others worked on this Hampton project. And here was their prototype from last summer. So it started a little bit slow. And this is an actual 3D world. So I'm running it live. So bear with me a little bit. And we don't have the final version of some of the structures in it because we were actually working on the mechanics. And one of the things that the students were working on is how can we display information in a 3D environment like this and have people learn about the place without feeling like it's not an immersive experience. So here you can see this is the plantation. And one of the interesting things about this plantation is the fact that if you go there now, it's a state park in South Carolina, and it's actually heavily wooded. But during the rice cultivating era, most of the trees were actually taken down. So you can actually see quite a ways. And this has been, in terms of the space and the landscape, one of the things that's most different is how far you could actually see. And we've been able to recreate that. And one of the real questions to working in this is how to balance explaining what was going on these landscapes when they were often landscapes of conflicting ideas, landscapes of oppression, as well as other cultural forces that were at work, is how to sensitively put those in there. So that's been a lot of the work that we've been doing to try to figure out ways to represent those things. So which is an ongoing part of the work that we've been doing, even with a new project I have. So let me stop sharing that for a second. So that was one of the first projects. And while that was going on, I've actually broadened that out to work in two other areas now that are currently ongoing. One is part of a larger effort from the Athenaeum Press and some other initiatives we have in Edwards College on Gullah Geechee culture. So as part of the Joyner Institute and other things that you can learn more about. A grant was received to work on digital collections for that. And one aspect of that has been to create a similar virtual environment for Sandy Island and other sites in the Gullah Geechee. So have an example of that. I don't know, Dr. Dillian, do we have time to show that as well? Or?
Sure, yeah, we have.
All right, so let me go ahead. And this one is in the earlier stages. So I'll go ahead and share some of that, and then I'll finish off with the other current project I have. So this is where we're actually exploring taking our 3D immersive environments and putting them on the web. So what you'll see here is a very first trial run at this. It's a little bit slow over our internet connection. And here we have some placeholders where students working on the project are thinking about how to create those introductory moments. So if you think about, movies and video games and others, how they have opening scenes to introduce you, these are some of the things they're working on now that will go into this space. And here's our slowly loading. There we go. So Sandy Island can only be reached by boat. And so this is an example of how you would arrive there. This is our generic visitor. And so we actually, and there are little sound bites that play in the environment. And then this box at the bottom gives you information as you explore. So, and I drive very fast, so there we go. As she approaches the store, and you can see we're working on these informational pop-ups that will tell you things about the environment. And then that's what those blue cubes are. They're triggers for the students to tie the information to. So here, this was a lantern that was held to, or put out to let people know there were storms coming. And if I come over here, if I can drive, there we go. And she comes in there. And then here's the interior. So we can look at the interior. And then this is looking at the general store. That's an important part of the culture of the island. Here is an example of Carolina gold rice. That is an artifact that the islanders have in the store to tell people a little bit of their story. Here's the proprietor of the store. So just a few little tidbits from that project as well. And then the last project that I'm running concurrently is a project that's included actually students getting the chance to go to Japan. So taking these ideas that I've been learning from Virtual Hampton and the Virtual Delphi project and Sandy Island, and looking at how to recreate the cultural experience of a Buddhist pilgrimage in Shikoku, Japan, along with a colleague here at Coastal. So that's another thing, is we do a lot of collaborative projects, working with our colleagues to give you new perspectives. Dr. Green is an expert on Japanese Buddhism, especially Kukai, who is a well-known Buddhist monk who started a branch of Buddhism in Japan. And there's a pilgrimage of 88 temples that you visit in Shikoku, Japan, that commemorates the events of his life and his teachings. And we've actually gotten together to create something called the Virtual Shikoku Pilgrimage. And in fact, we are working on that right now. And we were able to take students to Japan. And I've got up here just one more last little thing to share. If I come back here.
Dr. Bergeron, while
Yes.
you're pulling that up, you do
Yep.
have a question.
Okay.
Someone is asking if they need any design or coding experience in order to get involved in these projects with you.
That is a very good question. No, you do not. I have several classes, which I was going to mention here in a minute at the end, that give you the experience you need. We have many people that come in and have no experience at all with the technology, and that is not a hindrance whatsoever. I fully expect when you first start off that you will have seen these technologies, or if you have, that's great, but it's definitely not necessary. And I always am excited when I get students who get nervous when they come in and try it, and they're so excited after they get through their first few exercises and classes and actually see that, you know, they've contributed to some of these things and made the computer do what they want. So that's an excellent question, though. There is no, you basically will progress through. For some of the upper level classes that are specialized, there are preliminaries that you can take to get you up to speed. So excellent question. So this is just a few snapshots of our research trip to Japan last May. And we actually, Dr. Green and I are sponsoring, hopefully everything will be okay, sponsoring study abroad next May to Japan, and potentially more trips on the Shikoku project as well. So this is something that we have probably on our schedule for the next 5 years to get all 88 temples. But here actually are students enjoying Osaka, Japan. Oops. Ash, no. All right, we'll go back and do that a different way. There we go. And I have a couple other, I think I might have another snapshot here of one of the temples. Here we go. Here's one. Close that and open with the temple shots. Share that with you really quick. Here we go. Here's a temple shot. There we go. So this is an example of us actually participating in a small chunk of the temple pilgrimages. So all the students were provided on our grant with the appropriate, what they call henro gear. So henro is the Japanese word for pilgrim, henro michi. And here we are with Dr. Green discussing some of the aspects of the Buddhist rites that you perform at the temples when you visit. So you go up and you visit the main temple complex. There's a couple of stops you make, and then you actually get a book that you have stamped. And in Japan, what they mean by stamp is something much more elaborate. It's actually calligraphy that represents the symbols of each temple, and then they put a stamp in it as evidence that you visited and completed that on your pilgrimage. So all the students that went on the trip were able to participate in that. And again, we were hoping to perhaps extend that in the future as well. And now, as we're working on that project, we're actually modeling the buildings and structures that we collected information on in Japan. And our prototype for that will be debuted in the now postponed Asia Network Conference next spring. So we're really excited about that, and the students had a great experience. So those are some other examples of ongoing projects in virtual heritage, right, which ties in very strongly with archaeology and new ways that we're looking at the past, and also ties in with GIS and geospatial technologies.
So Sue, one additional question. Students who take your study abroad class in May 2021 to Japan, will they be working on this project specifically?
Actually, this particular study abroad is going to be a broader look at cultural landscapes in Japan. So for their coursework, they could choose to do something similar, but we're actually going to be visiting Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka for the study abroad. And what we're going to be looking at is pop culture landscapes. So how Japanese culture, which is a strong blend of traditional, modern, and quirky, how those are blended into, if you think Japanese anime, manga, movies. So if you think Spirited Away, or if you're familiar with those things. So we're going to look at those actual landscapes as we visit. So the study abroad itself will not be specifically tied to Shikoku, but will be something that will inform potentially if you want to work. So for example, I have independent study students that are going to be working on Shikoku in the fall. I have a research fellow, so we've had opportunities with that. So the project is so big because there's so many temples that students have been able to get all kinds of experience with it. And so there's both individual and organized course offerings with that project.
Great. So I'm not seeing any additional questions at this point. So I guess we will wrap up, and I will just say that I encourage everybody who is interested in getting involved in some hands-on and experiential learning opportunities to please consider some of the courses that we have offered for fall semester. We'll have more on the books for spring semester, as well as study abroad programs offered for next summer. And if you want to take a look at all of the requirements for the Anthropology and Geography major or any of our minors or certificates, please look at catalog.coastal.edu, or you can reach out to me directly at cdillian, that's CDILLIAN, at coastal.edu, or to Dr. Bergeron and Dr. Palmer to ask them specific questions about their courses and their programs. Otherwise, it's been fun chatting with you, and